The $300 million deal was circling the drain, and I was sitting in a windowless office in downtown Indianapolis, sipping lukewarm gas station coffee out of a chipped mug that read, "Retired, but still dangerous." I was reworking a liability clause so carefully it could have brought a litigator to tears. On paper, the acquisition of Midland Freight Solutions was airtight until some bright-eyed junior attorney slipped in boilerplate indemnity language that implied our client would be on the hook for international environmental violations. Derek Langston Sr., already red in the face, skipped every department and called me directly. Not legal, not contracts. "Get me Marla Jennings," he snapped. So there, I was surrounded by files older than half the staff rewriting 6 pages of chaos into language so precise it could have been notarized by a saint. No drama, no ego, just the job. By the time the updated files hit inboxes, Derek had calmed. His email to the firm simply read, "Marla got it done." Naturally, the CEO forwarded it to the senior team like he'd rewritten the Magna Carta. I didn't open it. I was already fixing another problem in procurement. Quick sidebar, while I'm patching multi-million-dollar disasters with a ballpoint pen and a stapler that predates Wi-Fi, 96% of y'all still haven't hit subscribe. That's like borrowing your neighbor's snow shovel and not even waving back. Go ahead, tap subscribe, drop a like. It's free. And it keeps us fueled to bring you more stories just like this. Now back to the fun. I've been at Croswell & Drake for 26 years. I don't network. I don't smile through chaos. I pick up the phone when no one else does. When estate taxes ruin a merger me. When a bitter son threatens $1 billion trust me. When Derek Jr. gets into a tabloid scandal that nearly violates ethics policy. Me again. My office is a jungle of paper and neon tabs. My wallpaper's a pine forest. I like trees more than people. Most days, I wear cardigans like armor and shoes made for walking away from nonsense. And still, I moved like an institution, steady, deliberate, essential. The unspoken rule at Croswell & Drake was this: when Langston or Prescott needed answers, they didn't go through official channels. They called me, not the team, not the partner. Me. And I always picked up by the second ring. Rumors swirled that I had dirt on everyone. People joked I kept Langston Sr.'s original will in a manila folder behind the microwave. The truth I just remembered: birthdays, divorce settlements, grandchildren's names, and exactly how many nights Langston Jr. spent in a cabin-sized jail cell off the coast of Belize during the embezzlement scare of 2005. That kind of trust isn't granted. It's built through decades of showing up, keeping quiet, and fixing it. One Wednesday, I walked past the conference room where Ethan Croswell, the founder's only son, was pacing in $800 sneakers, shouting about pipeline fluidity. I didn't look twice. Just another legacy kid with a buzzword addiction and a PowerPoint complex. To most of the new hires, I was part of the furniture, reliable and visible, and probably due for retirement. That was fine by me. I wasn't there for spotlight. I was there to stop the bleeding before anyone else noticed the cut. Still, as I passed HR watching Elise juggle a kombucha and a spreadsheet labeled Workforce Streamlining, I felt a crack in the floor, not seismic, just directional. I didn't know it yet, but the storm had started, and I was standing at the center until someone mistook my stillness for irrelevance. First signs came wrapped in branding. Ethan Croswell, 16 and 28. Stanford MBA hair, like lacquered plastic, kicked off his transformation initiative with a Monday all hands. His deck was titled Project Phoenix, the P, stylized like a jet engine. Font Comic Sans. He talked about synergy optimization and flattening communication channels, which apparently meant beanbag chairs and firing anyone who couldn't run a brainstorm through Notion. I sat in the back arms, folded, twitching at the word legacy on slide 4. I wasn't sure if he meant me or the fax machine. Either way, I didn't like the tone. And then he laughed. Loud. Relationships stuck in the 90s. That's why we're modernizing. I said nothing. I just tapped my pen against a yellow legal pad and walked out. But something shifted in my gut. It wasn't just that they were clueless. It was that they were proud of it. Within days, my calendar started mysteriously clearing. Strategic realignment, they called it. My access to the client CRM quietly downgraded. Then came the email. Cassidy, Ethan Croswell's brand new chief of staff, who still had her college sorority tagline in her signature, sent me a tidy little list of sunsetting legacy workflows. My name was on 3. I didn't rage, didn't complain. I started packing not boxes, but knowledge. I pulled out an old USB drive, plugged it into the ancient desktop in my home office, and began backing up what mattered. Contact logs, handwritten notes, side messages from Langston Sr. about upcoming estate changes. I wasn't stealing. I was preserving. Because relationships are built on memory, and memory gets wiped in reorgs. That night, I opened a drawer and pulled out an old birthday card. Gold cursive signed Marla Family First. We'll be here when you're ready. L. He sent it after my mom passed. That card held more loyalty than every single team values slide Ethan projected on a wall. But loyalty under LED lights doesn't count anymore. They changed the firm overnight. New slogan, Legacy Reimagined. Slack channels like Day, Client Love, and That's Your Deal surge. Someone swapped out the break room coffee for mushroom tea. I tried it once. It tasted like wet mulch and regret. I sat in on one of Ethan's workshops just to observe. Title, Disruption Mindset. Halfway through, he pulled up a client segmentation chart. Langston and Prescott was marked with a red asterisk. Too high touch, he said. Too reliant on non-scalable human capital. I blinked. That's what I was now. I didn't storm out. I stood in the back arms, folded, wrapped in a navy cardigan that had survived 100 closings and 2 internal audits, and watched a man with no scars cut me out of the bloodstream. He lit the fuse. I just went home. That night, I exported every critical number into a folder, titled Just in Case. Because Marla Jennings didn't start fires. She finished them. It happened on a Friday. It always does. That's when cowards strike right before the weekend, when no one's around to ask questions. I logged into the 9:00 a.m. Zoom labeled Org Sync. I expected more of Ethan's digital theater. Maybe another consultant named Skylar quoting Steve Jobs out of context while sipping turmeric lattes. Instead, I was greeted by a 5-panel Brady Bunch of doom. Ethan, HR, legal, Cassidy, chewing gum, and some guy from People Experience who looked like he ran on LinkedIn slogans and air. Marla Ethan began voice flat as printer paper. Thanks for joining on short notice. I'd written that line into enough offboarding emails to know what was coming. I could smell it through the screen. We're streamlining some of our legacy roles to better align with Croswell and Drake's growth-forward mindset. He read like he was trying out for amateur theater. Your role, while valuable, no longer fits our strategic direction. Some team members just can't keep up with the pace we're setting. I tilted my head slightly, like a dog hearing static. Can't keep up. The last time Ethan pulled an all-nighter was because DoorDash glitched and his poke bowl was late. HR chimed in with the empathy voice. You'll receive a formal severance package. It has already begun the access transition. Access transition. Jesus. Behind the script, something in me sank. Not anger, not grief. Just the echo of 28 years of 6-owner AM crisis calls, handwritten condolences to widowed clients, and 12-hour days spent patching holes no one else could see. I understand, I said. Ethan smiled, like that gave him permission to sleep better. Thank you for your years of service. The screen went black. 5 seconds later, so did my email, then Slack, then the VPN. At least they were efficient. An intern I'd never seen before escorted me out like I was returning stolen office supplies. I didn't rush. I took my time. My best mom, number 3 mug. A photo of Murphy, long gone. And the birthday card from Langston Sr., still tucked inside my drawer like a final handshake from a better era. No goodbyes, no eye contact. No one even offered a tissue. Outside, the sun hit my face, like I'd forgotten what real light felt like. My car still smelled like lavender air freshener and the ghost of last week's coffee. I sat in the front seat, closed the door, and just breathed. Once, then again, then I turned the key and drove to the only place that had ever really mattered, home. That night, I opened a bottle of Cabernet I'd been saving for either a promotion or a funeral. I lit a candle, one of Cassidy's ugly citrus blends she'd given out for Christmas, and poured myself a glass. At 7:04 p.m., the email from legal came in. Subject line, severance agreement, signature required by Monday. I didn't open it. If you felt that shift, the quiet power of a name that outlasted a legacy, go ahead and subscribe. The next chapter's already unfolding, and trust me, you won't want to miss who calls Marla next. Instead, I pulled out my black notebook, the one I only used when things really mattered. Page 1 still blank. I wrote a single name, Langston Prescott. Below it, I underlined, if she ever leaves, we leave too. No tears, no shouting, just the sound of ink against paper. I wrote bullet points, names, conditions, quiet things that held weight. I poured another glass, opened my personal laptop, and clicked open my contact list. I wasn't going back. I was burning the map. By Monday morning, Croswell and Drake was already riding the hangover of a Friday firing. No one said my name, but the absence sat heavy like the ghost of someone who used to hold the place together. My yogurt was still in the break room fridge. The orchid on my windowsill had started to curl like even it knew. Ethan strutted in like he'd slayed a dragon, tossed around words like nimble pivot and workflow synergy, made Cassidy book lunch with some UX guru from Brooklyn who revolutionized interactive gift boxes. Meanwhile, panic swirled over the Langston and Prescott portfolio. Old school muttered one junior. They faxed us a memo, another said, holding it up. One line, Marla. Langston Jr. emailed, need to speak with Jennings Rebarnet files. Please advise. It bounced. My account was already erased. Ethan skimmed it and shrugged. They'll adapt. This is how we grow. That was Ethan's line to the board. After the silence from Langston and Prescott, by Wednesday, he reassigned the entire account to Cassidy, who promptly sent them a Google Doc titled L&P Relationship 2.0, Modern Client Touchpoints. It had emojis in the headers. She sent it directly to Langston Sr. 3 hours later, the response came. In meeting declined. Please cease outreach until further notice. Ethan didn't flinch. They're bluffing, he told leadership. Just rattled by the change, they weren't bluffing. At exactly 2:15 p.m. on Thursday, I stepped onto the lawn at Langston Ridge Country Club wearing a navy blazer with a calmness no HR form could measure. A valet tried to ask my name, but a hand on his shoulder stopped him. Langston Sr. stood under the trees, arms folded, expression carved from years of silence and strategy. Marla, he said, voice like gravel and bourbon. I nodded. I'm no longer with Croswell and Drake. He didn't blink, just reached inside his jacket and pulled out a folded letter. So neither are we. It was a termination notice, undated, unsigned, but ready. I didn't smile, didn't gloat. I just tucked it into my handbag like it was a grocery list. We sat beneath a striped awning, overlooking a marble fountain, funded no doubt by a clever depreciation schedule. He poured 2 glasses of something older than Cassidy's work history. I'm tired of being treated like a user flow, he said. They see numbers, you see names. That's why we trusted you. He leaned in, voice low. We'd like to hire you. Independent advisory. You choose where we go next. I didn't answer. Not yet. That night at my kitchen table, I opened a drawer and pulled out the old LLC paperwork Jennings Advisory Partners. Still smelled like toner and ambition. I opened my laptop, clicked new email. Subject, private transition support available. Body. If you've heard the rumors, they're true. I'm no longer with Croswell and Drake, but I'm still working, and I'm still Marla. Replies started arriving before I could hit refresh. The fall was over. The climb had begun. The next morning, I rolled up my sleeves like it was a crisis call in the old war room. No interns scribbling buzzwords, no whiteboards. Just me, a temperamental 12-year-old Epson printer, and a thick folder labeled Jennings Advisory Partners. Revival. I dug through my old banking records, called the Indiana Licensing Board to reactivate my consulting certification, and scheduled digital signatures for new retainer agreements. Everything smelled faintly of dust and second chances. When I hit submit on the LLC reactivation, it didn't feel like a formality. It felt like a quiet middle finger aimed squarely at Ethan Croswell's hair gel. By 3 p.m., the calls started. Quiet ones, blocked numbers, nervous voices. "Hey, Marla. Is it true? You're out, I heard you're consulting again." "Confidentially. Can we talk contracts? Please don't mention this call. But if you're available..." I kept it simple. Calm, steady. "Yes, I'm available. Let's connect this week. Your confidentiality is protected." Behind the screen, I was already building a spreadsheet. Clients, risk exposure, contract renewal dates, decision makers. The kind of list you build not for business, but for battle. One whisper at a time. Later that night, a ping lit up my personal phone. Unknown number. But the message style was unmistakable. Talia, the ambitious junior who used to trail me like a Labrador in thrift store heels. "Talia, FYI, things are weird here. Like really weird." I didn't respond right away. Let it breathe. Then I replied, "Define weird." 3 dots danced. Then came the flood. "Talia, they're spiraling. Ethan keeps calling emergency meetings on narrative control. Cassidy cried in the stairwell. Client services missed 2 deadlines. Legal's blaming broken data, handoffs." I sipped my tea. Typed slow. "Is Langston and Prescott's record still marked active?" "Talia, yes." But no response for the last 6 touch points. That click behind my ribs wasn't excitement. It wasn't revenge. It was colder. Validation. I waited. Then asked, "Can you access the client retention report?" "Talia, you mean the RED file?" I raised one eyebrow. Now we were getting somewhere. RED stood for Revenue Engagement and Decline, an internal snapshot, tracking how close each client was to walking out the door. I asked, "Can you send me a screenshot?" 10 minutes later, it landed in my inbox. It was hemorrhaging. Of Croswell and Drake's top 12 accounts, 8 had downgraded their service tier. 3 had paused renewals. 2 had gone completely dark. No emails, no returned calls. And in bold red text, beneath Langston and Prescott, "At risk, loss of primary relationship, point, Jennings." I leaned back, the room dim, except for my laptop's glow and the soft jazz Spotify had cued by accident. Ethan was bleeding. He just didn't know how deep the cut went. I opened a blank doc, titled it Client Transition Strategy, Tiered Rollout. At the top, Phase 1, Listen. Phase 2, Offer Quiet Solutions. Phase 3, Reclaim what's already mine. This war wouldn't be fought with noise. It would be fought with silent spreadsheets and surgical precision. I didn't need to burn Croswell and Drake to the ground. I just had to let gravity do its thing. Ethan was busy prepping for his innovation showcase. Glossy invitations. Metallic lettering. He'd booked the 12th floor event space, hired a floral consultant to stage succulents around untouched iPads. There was sushi, a DJ, even an ice sculpture shaped like a rocket labeled Vision. Across town, I stirred cream into my coffee with a ballpoint pen and waited. At 9:06 a.m., sharp, my phone rang. Miss Jennings came, the voice, smooth, formal. "Langston Sr.'s legal counsel. We've delivered formal termination notice to Croswell and Drake. Effective immediately. Copies have been sent to General Counsel and board leadership." I didn't speak, just breathed in through my nose, out through my mouth. Inside the glass tower, legal scrambled. Too late. The letter hit every board member's inbox. Due to the unexpected departure of our primary relationship steward, we no longer believe Croswell and Drake can fulfill the fiduciary or operational needs of our trust. Termination effective immediately. Ethan didn't even get through the first edamame before the board VP went pale. "Did you know this was coming?" Someone hissed. Ethan blinked. "They're just reacting emotionally." "I doubt it," someone muttered. "We told you Langston and Prescott was non-negotiable. You removed the one person they trusted." By the time Ethan opened the formal termination letter, the DJ was packing up and the last piece of sushi was sweating under the LED lights. I didn't gloat. Instead, I pulled up the final draft of the consulting agreement Langston Senior's counsel had sent over 2 nights earlier. I'd spent hours redlining it, cutting every clause that tried to treat me like a temporary solution. I added 2 non-negotiables. One, I would not under any circumstance advise them back to Croswell and Drake. 2, I would personally vet the next firm with veto power over any candidate. The Langston family signed without hesitation. That same afternoon, I met Langston Sr., again this time, in a private conference room at a boutique wealth advisory in Midtown. He looked 10 years lighter than he had on the golf course. Even the cane seemed more like a prop than a necessity. "We need a new home?" he said, spreading out a deck of competing firm profiles like tarot cards. "And you're the only person I trust to find it." I flipped through the folders slowly. "I'll vet them all, but my name stays out of it." "Understood," he nodded. "They'll see your fingerprints, not your face." We toasted with black coffee. No ceremony, just quiet strategy between 2 people who understood the difference between noise and consequence. Back at Croswell, Cassidy stood in Ethan's office, pale as a receipt. Another client flagged a relationship gap, she whispered. "They're calling it the Jennings effect." Ethan scoffed. "Temporary market reaction." Even he didn't believe it. His hand trembled as he minimized the CRM window. 3 more emails appeared, clients asking for new contact points. All of them had once answered only to me. By nightfall, my inbox was packed NDAs, retainer drafts, and discreet offers. I didn't rush. I replied to one happy to discuss terms. "Please note, my schedule is selective." I poured a whiskey neat, watched the skyline flicker. Somewhere, Ethan was still spinning the collapse as a culture pivot. But the board wasn't buying it. Results had left the building wearing orthopedic flats and carrying a cardboard box. It was Olympic-level gaslighting. Ethan claimed the Langston and Prescott exit was part of a broader strategic repositioning, that it was mutually beneficial. Worst of all, he insisted the decision had been made in consultation with senior leadership. Cassidy proofread it. Legal polished it. PR wrapped it in brand-safe language. But by the time it hit inboxes, the damage had already metastasized. 3 hours later, the board called an emergency session. Ethan sat at the head of the table, sweat soaking into his $300 slim-fit shirt, while the board's eldest member, Hamilton Ellis, who I used to send whiskey truffles every Christmas, held up 2 papers. In one hand, the termination letter. In the other, the original onboarding contract for Langston and Prescott. "Did you read this?" Hamilton asked, voice like sandpaper soaked in bourbon. Ethan nodded, then hesitated. I was briefed on its general terms." Hamilton tapped the page. "Then you missed Section 3C. All changes in designated stewardship require written pre-approval from the advisory board. No raised voices, just pressure precisely applied. That clause alone could trigger a breach of service lawsuit worth more than Ethan's entire innovation budget." He mumbled something about dynamic stewardship recalibration. No one blinked. The next morning, the board discreetly hired a private audit firm not to find sabotage, but incompetence. They found plenty. Slack logs where Cassidy joked that I had boomer loyalty cult energy. Memos where Ethan called me institutionally immobile. A draft policy suggesting legacy clients be gently weaned off dependency. Everything documented. Everything ignored. Until now. I didn't leak a thing. The house was already burning. From my apartment overlooking the river, I sipped tea while reading files forwarded by my former assistant, now quietly moonlighting as a double agent. One spreadsheet stood out. Title, Client Exposure, Post Jennings. Langston and Prescott's row was highlighted in red. In the margin, someone had written in all caps, "Who signed off on this?" I smiled. Just slightly. That evening, my phone buzzed. Unknown number. I let it ring twice, then picked up. "Marla," a voice said, one I hadn't heard in 6 years. "It's Alan Drake, the old co-founder. Retired now, not disconnected." Alan Drake's voice was slower than I remembered, raspy, but steady. "Not weak. I assume you've seen the fallout." "I've seen pieces," I said. "You didn't leak anything." "No need," I replied. They did it to themselves. He gave a dry chuckle. I always told Ethan the firm had arteries. He thought it had code. I didn't speak. Then came the words I'd quietly waited to hear, "You were the artery." I leaned against the window. The glass was cool against my temple. "Why are you calling Alan?" "Because the board wants to speak with you. Informally. Tomorrow." "Just a conversation." I paused. "Send it through my assistant," I said. "She'll check my availability." And just like that, the tide shifted. Ethan was still inside the building, flailing like a CEO on stilts, unaware the undertow had already dragged him too far out to swim. I didn't need revenge. I had gravity. The formal offer came as a voicemail from a board VP who used to call me the office historian like it was a polite insult. His voice cracked halfway through my name. "Marla." "Ms. Jennings, we're reevaluating recent structural decisions. The board believes your institutional knowledge is indispensable. We'd like to explore a potential strategic return if you'd be open to it." I listened while brushing crumbs off my keyboard. Didn't bother replaying it. Just hit delete. Then opened a blank Google Doc advisory rates. Jennings Advisory Partners. That afternoon, I typed a short paragraph. My assistant sent it on embossed letterhead. Not email, courier. Let them feel the formality. While I am not interested in returning as an employee, I am open to limited advisory support through my firm. Rates begin at 3x my prior compensation. All client portfolio decisions route through my office. Terms are non-negotiable. Kindly advise within 48 hours if you wish to proceed. No closing. Just Marla. No title, no fluff. Just a name now, haunting every boardroom slide deck like a ghost with receipts. Within 24 hours, Croswell and Drake bled again. One client cited continuity failure. Another was more direct. "If Marla Jennings is gone, so are we." What was left of the firm's private Slack buzzed with muted chaos. Ethan tried to spin it like some kind of bold, strategic pivot. Cassidy was overheard crying again, this time in the parking garage phone, to her ear, whispering, "I didn't know she had that kind of pull." One of the interns sent me a screenshot of the CRM dashboard. Total revenue, at risk, 38%. Title of the internal emergency memo, The Jennings Exodus. I didn't respond. I just forwarded it to my attorney with one line: add hazard premium to advisory proposal. Then I called Jules, a mutual friend, still working in procurement for one of the bleeding clients. Tell him I said if he wanted disruption, this is what it looks like. Jules laughed. "He's sweating through 3 shirts a day." "Want me to twist the knife?" "No," I said. "Just let him learn how fast the future moves." That night, while emails poured in from legacy clients asking for guidance, I sipped my whiskey and watched the stock tickers for 2 of the firms I'd shortlisted for Langston and Prescott. One was rising. The other tanked after losing a major referral I'd quietly withdrawn. My influence didn't look like fireworks. It looked like margin shifts, rewritten policies, and silent voicemail trails no one dared admit I still had. They thought they were evolving. What they never understood was I was evolution. I didn't need a seat at their table. I was building my own. When Alan Drake, the co-founder, semi-retired in Maine, returned to the office, it buzzed like a dying fire alarm, shrill, confused, and too late to stop the smoke. He arrived in silence, gray wool coat, no town hall, just a closed-door session with the board. They slid a stack of papers across the table, termination letters, client loss reports, internal threads, all with the same name, Marla Jennings. He read slowly, Langston and Prescott, Harrow Keene, Kinsley Trust. Every loss one-sided. Every comment citing the same thing, loss of strategic continuity. Alan looked up, voice flat. "And where's my son Ethan?" was on the 10th floor pacing, sweating through his shirt, prepping for a presentation no one would hear. Cassidy sat red-eyed in the corner quietly, whispering prayers to Indeed.com, while drafting a resume no one would read. Alan Drake entered without knocking, walked to the head of the boardroom table. "Out," he said. Cassidy grabbed her laptop and vanished like a puff of perfume. Ethan straightened in his chair, smiling too wide. "Dad?" "I mean, Alan, I was just about to loop you in. We've hit a rough patch, but Alan held up a single piece of paper. Langston Sr.'s letter, the one I'd read like scripture. This is your legacy, Alan said. You didn't just lose a client. You lost our foundation. Ethan sputtered. She was slowing us down. She was the pace Alan snapped. His voice, low and deliberate, landed like stone through glass. And you fired her because she didn't use Slack. Ethan opened his mouth, then shut it. That afternoon, Croswell and Drake issued a quiet, company-wide memo. Effective. Immediately, Ethan Drake is transitioning into a non-executive role. All client-facing responsibilities will be reassigned. His key card was deactivated before the ink dried. His calendar vanished, his signature scrubbed from every template. And me, I wasn't watching. I was 30 miles offshore barefoot on the teak deck of a chartered yacht cutting across Lake Michigan. A chilled bottle of champagne sat between me and Langston Sr., who grinned like a man freed from dead weight. Ready? He asked, sliding the final contract toward me. It was the first seven-figure retainer for Jennings Advisory Partners. Not 1 cent of it owed to the firm that once called me outdated. I signed it. Just my name. No title. No flair. Just the signature that now shifted empires. As the sun dipped low, I looked across the horizon. Calm. No smirk, no monologue, just stillness. I took a long sip of champagne and said, mostly to the wind. Sometimes it takes an old-timer to shut it all down. Quietly, efficiently. No fire, no revenge speech. Just competence. And the unmistakable sound of a door closing for good. Thanks for writing this story. Subscribe to keep the quiet power rolling. Your ex-boss still sweating.